a spot in the property here that we end up having some apple trees. So we have 3 of them planted in a cluster here. And the purpose for these are just to add a little bit more wildlife diversity. Put them in the ground probably 5 years ago. Some of them are producing a few apples. Out by one of the plots, there was a apple tree that ended up producing about 12 or 16 apples, something like that last year. It had only been in the ground for about 4 years. And what ended up happening is early in fall, it had the apples on the tree, and then a few weeks later, it didn't. And no signs of them being taken or gone or anything like that. It was surprising. The other trees out there have these cages on them, just like you see here. Purpose for the cages is to keep the deer away from it until they get old enough that they can actually, you know, have the fruit without damaging the tree, because they'll eat the limbs and stuff like that during winter. And then we got the tubes around the bottom, primarily to keep the bunnies from nibbling on the trunks. These are all things that we've learned by having them in the past and then losing the trees and then putting more in. What ends up happening though with these tubes is the mice got in. So we kept the bunnies away, but the mice got into them, started building nests, and also would do the same problem with the trunks. So we found out that by using mothballs, sticking them in the tubes, you'll see a package of them sitting right there, it helps keep the mice away. So they don't like lavender and spearmint. So if you get sent in ones, that's kind of handy, and that stopped them from building nests inside. So yes, it's kind of a pain in the butt, but animals want to eat and have nests and do whatever, so we wanted to be able to have the trees and produce fruit for various reasons. So it's nurturing them along, and they're coming. And then getting back to that tree that I was talking about that we had fruit on it, and it came, you know, a few weeks later, everything was gone and nothing was tampered with the cages. And we do have a couple bear around as well, so we thought maybe that got into it, but the cages weren't damaged. So we can only suspect that it must have been squirrels. My brother had some apple trees in his yard, and he set up a game camera, and sure enough, he found out the culprit with his apple trees where the squirrels were getting to them. So that explains how they came off the trees without the cages being damaged and the fruit being missing. So word to the wise on that one. Here's the sawmill off in the distance over there that we were working at yesterday afternoon. Obviously you can see more trees coming in, so hopefully you can kind of get a sense of the curvature of this trail that we have, so you can see that, you know, you can't see very far before it starts to bend. The deer seem to like that. We do have one path here in the middle, again, a ton of raspberry and blackberry bushes and all that kind of good stuff. With the hybrid popples and some red pines growing and some spruce on the other side. So this we use as a cross between trail. It's kind of handy. What ended up happening is it was done with the trees a number of years ago, and as they started growing, we found that the deer like to actually use this as a trail to cut across the field instead of going out as much in the open space. They still cross in the open areas as well. You can see a bunch of white pines over there. We have another stand on that end. So we're going to be creating another food plot in this area as well, and see what we can have come in and do some browsing. You can see all the hybrids along here. Purpose for the hybrids is they grow pretty quick. They can grow 3 to 5 feet per year. So some of them have been in the ground for about 10 years or so. They've been stunted a little bit, so some of them really didn't take off as well as I'd hoped. But you can see a couple of them on the far end there. They're pushing probably 30 feet or something like that. So they're getting up there. Things are going well. Just need to have rain and good weather, and it's kind of sandy soil here, so rain can be challenging. If it doesn't come often enough, things can get dried out, even though it's a pretty flat area here. So Along here is where you're going to find some of those Christmas trees. The white spruce, the deer have a tendency to leave them alone. We've also planted Norways, as I mentioned. There's one that I've been pruning. I got a number of them I got to start pruning up a little bit more this year. They're getting pretty big. But that one's got some nice shape to it. That one too. Keep working on hitting them with pruning blades is what I use. They're about 18 inches in length, and you swing them by hand, and you have a little bit of a force that you put behind it, but it cuts right off the branches nice and neat and clean, and you can do a whole bunch in a short amount of time instead of pruning shears going one by one. So as you can see, variety of sizes, and you know, that one's a nice tree as far as getting big and nice and full. So we got a variety of them here for Christmas time and just to look at. They're pretty. Here you'll find our creek. Goes up quite a ways. Looks like I might have just seen a duck or a deer way off in the distance. I think there is. Yep, looks like there's a deer in the creek standing way up there. They like to come down and hang out in the water. We've had an abundance of water this spring, not so much lately, but in April, and it got pretty high and flushed a lot of the leaves and other debris, as well as silt and the dark stuff that you see in the water. So it's a nice sandy bottom. Once again, it's looking pretty good. Here you'll see better example of how this line goes. As I said, we cut on a trail. It's a pretty well used road. We used it for logging years ago, and then we've just continued to maintain it. So along this whole line we planted red pines. So the red pines here have been growing for about 12 years, I'll say, or so, and offer a nice buffer. On the other side there's also more field area that's still remaining open. I didn't want to close and create everything in woods. I just wanted to be able to create some diversity instead of having one big block of 6 acres. This way we have the ability to channel and get the deer to move a variety of directions. We have a lot of grouse here, squirrels obviously, and ducks along our creek and pond area come in and visit once in a while. And here you'll see an opening where, again, a ton of pine trees, but we also have a whole lot of aspens along the side here. Going further east, which is where those aspens are, back in there about 100 yards, there's a creek that runs through our property. It's about a half mile worth of creek frontage that we have. It's really nice to be able to have for the deer, for water, and ducks and a variety of things move through there. So this whole area here, you can see where the pines in the distance there again are going along the perimeter, but we also have further down there some hybrid poplars. I put in the center, there's a little bit of an opening you'll see in the distance there, and that was created to connect the 2 1-acre portions of field. We've outlined it with a combination of Norway spruce, regular white spruce, red pine, hybrid poplars, to give nice diversity for food and cover and all that kind of good stuff. So I put a little strip in the middle. Due to frost and other things late in the springtime, some of the poplars are having a tougher time making it, and grass competition for some of the pines, so that's been a little more challenging. But things are coming. We keep working on it year after year. Got a bunch of white pines along here. We have a bunch of jack pines as well. So we have a nice corridor trail here, so we can keep our visibility to a minimum when we're hunting. We have a foot trail that links up to the stand that's over there, and it goes out towards the pond, and we can see a variety of things out that direction as well. This foot trail leads through to the creek, crosses the creek, and gets to the other side. gets up to the house, so we have easy access to come around. And the pines here offer some block, so that if there are deer out in the larger field to this side, they don't necessarily see us as easily coming and going. Likewise, there's a small plot over here that we'll be getting to as well. And that too is once again covered by trees, coming along nicely. Some of them better than the others, obviously. You may ask why we have some of these metal cages and posts and stuff like that around the trees. Well, we have a lot of deer, and what ends up happening, if they get hungry enough, they're going to eat on these pines, and they'll take these tassels off in the wintertime. They don't usually pick on the red pines. White pine is more of a candy for them. They like to eat on jack pines as well. That's a jack pine there. So the cages help keep the deer from browsing on them. So they're about the point in time now that I can safely remove a bunch of these. And they also help for bucks to keep them from scraping on them as much, or rubbing I should say, to get the bark off and all that kind of good stuff. So it's kind of handy that we don't have them running through a straight line and marring up a bunch of trees as well. So as you can see, a lot of work, lots of different ideas. Post your comments. We'd love to hear from you if you have other solutions as to what works on your property. We just keep at it by doing pruning and transplanting. Sometimes we did thousands of trees on the property after we did logging, and planted a bunch. So we didn't nearly have as many pine trees originally after our logging. It was a lot of deciduous oaks and maples and cherries and a variety of other stuff. And then we ended up adding a diversity of pine trees to the element. Right now we don't have to do any future plantings, which is kind of nice. Everything's coming along from Mother Nature. And I do have some Christmas trees down the way that we'll show you. Those are kind of nice. I usually end up cutting one down for Christmas time for the family. So that's about the only thing that I'll continue on replanting, would be some Christmas trees. Not a lot. I'll just plant a few a year just so I have a rotation. So some things to think about when you have some property, and how you can make a diversification for the wildlife. Also pleasant to be able to look at too. In amongst a bunch of trees here, we have a bunch of berries. So blackberries and raspberries grow pretty well in this soil here out in the open fields. So hopefully maybe this summer we'll have a good flush of berries again that we can pick. Stay tuned, got more to come.